The night of December 14, 1998, unfolded with a deceptive calm. The Caribbean Sea shimmered under a blanket of stars, smooth as glass. A gentle breeze whispered across the open decks of the Monarch of the Seas, carrying with it the scent of salt and a sense of perfect escape. On board, the massive cruise liner felt like a floating city of dreams. Families laughed over buffet dinners. Couples swayed to soft jazz in the lounges. Children splashed in the pool, their joy echoing through the corridors. Everything about the night felt ... right? Peaceful. Almost too peaceful. Captain Henrik Larsson stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the glowing instruments in front of him. A seasoned sailor with nearly 2 decades at sea, Larsson trusted his instincts more than any piece of technology. Tonight, though, those instincts were whispering something he couldn't quite explain. Next to him, First Officer Miguel Torres reviewed the ship's course. Clear ahead, seas are calm. No signs of disturbance. Larsson gave a slow nod but kept his gaze on the darkness beyond the glass. Sometimes, calm seas hide rough truths, he murmured, almost to himself. Below deck, a young couple, Emily and Jason Reed from Oregon, were celebrating their honeymoon. They posed for a photo with the ship's photographer, glasses of champagne in hand. "To forever," Jason toasted, as the camera flashed. But forever, as they were about to learn, sometimes arrives in the blink of an eye. At exactly 12:27 a.m., the ship trembled, just slightly. Like a shiver, no alarms, no sirens, just a subtle, haunting vibration that ran through the hull. On the bridge, Larsson froze. "Did you feel that?" he asked sharply. Torres was already checking the monitors. "Slight list to port, but there's no impact. No collision warning." Then it came another tremble, stronger this time. Passengers paused. Glasses clinked and fell. A few looked around, confused. Still, the music played. Still, the dream floated on. But down in the lower decks, near the bow, something had gone horribly wrong. A loud groan, metal straining. And in that moment, a ship carrying over 2,500 souls shifted from dream to disaster. Panic doesn't start with a scream. It starts with silence. A silence so sharp, it cuts through the air like a blade. And in that silence, fear takes its first breath. Within seconds of the second tremor, water began flooding through a ruptured sea chest. Opening near the hull meant to take in seawater for cooling the ship SNGs. This one had failed catastrophically. Below-deck maintenance workers shouted in confusion as water gushed in like a broken dam. Alarms finally screamed to life. Red lights strobed in the narrow hallways. Doors slammed shut. Metal groaned under pressure. Up on deck 5, Jason and Emily were jolted awake in their cabin. The floor tilted slightly beneath their feet. "What was that?" Emily asked, her voice tight with fear. Jason moved toward the door. "Stay here. I'll find out." But he never made it far. The ship lurched violently, throwing him against the dresser. Screams erupted in the hallway. Running, crying, chaos. Meanwhile, on the bridge, Captain Larsson was shouting orders into the radio. "Shut all watertight doors. Get me damage control now." But the flooding was faster than the crew could react. Passengers began pouring out of their cabins, many still in pajamas, barefoot and clutching children. Crew members tried to calm them, guiding them toward muster stations. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is the captain. We are experiencing a technical issue. Please remain calm and proceed to your assigned lifeboat stations." This is not a drill, but the calm had already shattered. Lifeboats were being lowered, but some passengers were trapped below deck. The elevators had been cut off. The stairwells jammed with people. Water was now rising through the lower decks, 1 inch at a time, then 2, then 5. In the engine room, emergency crews worked frantically to slow the flooding, but it was no use. The rupture was too severe. The sea had found its way in, and it wasn't letting go. Captain Larsson clenched his jaw. "Send the Mayday. Get the Coast Guard." From a nearby radio tower, the distress signal was picked up. "Mayday, this is Monarch of the Seas. We are taking on water. Location, 25 miles northeast of St. Martin. Request immediate assistance." Back on deck 8, a little girl named Lily clung to her mother's hand. Her eyes were wide, lips trembling. "Mommy, are we going to die?" Her mother knelt, holding her face. "No, baby, not today. Just hold on. We're going to be okay." But the truth was, no one knew. The lights flickered once ... Then again, the Monarch of the Seas was sinking. And time was running out. The clock was ticking loud, invisible, and merciless. As the Monarch of the Seas tilted further, passengers on the upper decks now looked over the railings in horror. The once luxurious cruise liner had become a battleground between man and ocean. Captain Larsson barked into the bridge intercom. "We have 30 minutes, maybe less. Prioritize children and elderly. Get them to lifeboats. Now." Crew members sprinted across the slanted deck, helping terrified passengers to lifeboat stations. But not all lifeboats were functioning. Some had jammed in their cradles. rusted cables snapping under pressure. The lifeboat on the starboard side swung dangerously, nearly slamming into the hull before a crew member cut the cord with an axe. Below deck, Jason fought against rising water, searching for Emily, who had become separated in the chaos. Water sloshed around his knees as he pushed through a crowd. He spotted her near the stairwell, clutching the banister, her face pale. "I thought I lost you," she cried. "You never will," he replied, pulling her close. With water now reaching the promenade deck, panic set in like wildfire. A stampede began, screaming voices, slipping feet, crying children. Crew members tried to form human chains, shouting for calm, but fear had taken full control. Meanwhile, in the ship's medical bay, Dr. Priya Anand refused to leave. "I still have patients," she told the officer sent to escort her. "You go, I'll be behind you." She stayed until the last unconscious man was rolled into a lifeboat. Back on the bridge, the Coast Guard finally responded. "This is Coast Guard Command. Helicopters are en route. ADA 22 minutes. Hold your position. Repeat, hold your position." But the Monarch was no longer holding anything. It was listing hard to port. Plates, chairs, and furniture slid across decks. Windows shattered. Water roared in with the sound of a freight train. The ship's final tilt came suddenly. Emily screamed as she and Jason clung to a rail, watching the deck below vanish beneath waves. Lifeboats dropped hurriedly, some half-filled, others overloaded. People leaped into the water with life jackets, hoping for rescue. A helicopter appeared on the horizon, its searchlight piercing the smoke and spray. Captain Larson stood firm on the bridge, refusing evacuation. "Sir, please, you need to go," his first officer begged. "I go when the last soul is safe," he replied quietly, watching as the stern of the ship began to rise. Then came the final groan. Metal twisted, glass shattered, and slowly, almost with dignity, the Monarch of the Seas began her descent beneath the Atlantic waves.